忘了发了，
什么意思？什么意思？教一个什么？
但是如果考试之前你要身体状况不好，就是你考试没过的话，比如说你考试了我，然后帮你安一个，
不是就是你得之前发还是之后发？
必须之前的呀。
说考试感觉状态不太好，之前赶紧发一个说牙疼。
真的？牙疼这理由我打算说。
我改别地儿抄。就是
什么抑郁啊？
抑郁
跟老婆分手了。
家里出事儿了。
对，他
说的越严重越好。
这个是相当于中间发生一个过程，就具体的过程，然后
那润球就是把这所有的这两个这三个结合在一起。
我没收到邮件啊。
Okay, time to start again. I'm going to spend a little bit of time this afternoon talking about how you could get 100% on the Comp 6230 exam. Some of what I have to say is general and is examination technique, and you probably know all of this already because everybody in this room is good at passing exams. But every university will set exams in a slightly different way, so I'll be explaining how it's done at Southampton, and hopefully that will benefit you. Now, unfortunately, we don't have the whole class here. The people that really need this material are the people that aren't here. So that's a problem. And one of the points I want to make is that I'm very, very keen to give you 100%, but you have to meet me halfway. You have to give me the material so I can justifiably award you 100%. Okay, so my first comment is that I'm going to be talking about the way that I mark exams. And all of my colleagues will have their different ways of doing it. Ollie will be different, Gary will be different, and so you can't extrapolate from the way I mark exams to the way they mark exams. So one of the things I wanted to show you is what you have to write in when you take the exams. Pass those round and so you can see what's going on here. You'll see at the bottom of here it says it is prohibited to remove any stationery from the examination room. So I'd like these back, please, because otherwise I will get arrested. There, that thing there. So a lot of this is very, very obvious. One very key point, though, is where it says the ID number, because this is the only way of tracking the script down to you. That's, can I reach that? Right, this bit here. Now you have an 8-digit registration number, and that's what they're asking for there. My advice is that to write this down in 2 groups of 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, then a gap, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just doing that has reminded me that in some cultures you write a 1 like this, which looks awfully very similar to the way that a 7 is written. So you need to be very, very careful about 1s and 7s. I would make those very clear, that it really is a 1 and it really is a 7. This is the way, the registration number is the way that the script gets tied back to you. And that's why it's so important. The rest of this is pretty relatively unimportant. The paper typing is easy. This is what the paper will look like. This isn't the paper you'll be taking. This is last year's paper, so you can just take it straight off the paper. Not a problem. The module code is also given on the paper. Hopefully you know the date. Now the next two are quite often misunderstood. It says the question numbers answered in this book. So typically you'll be putting down, I don't know, 1, 3 on the first book and maybe 5 on the second book. Notice I'm assuming you're going to end up with 2 of these books. Later on I'll explain to you that these answer books have got 8 pages in them. And I expect to see, for a 45-minute exam question, something like 4 pages per question. So you'll get 2 questions in this book. You have to answer 3 questions, so you need 2 books to put together. And could I have one of the other books back, please? Yeah, that'll do. That's what this little tag is for. At the end of the exam, you just put it together like that. It's an incredibly crude system, but it works. I've never known these not to work. What annoys me, though, is students that say, well, this is so crude, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make very, very certain that it can't come undone. They spend 5 minutes tying an elaborate knot, and the first thing I have to do is to spend 5 minutes untying that knot. So, you know, even if the tag didn't work, you've still got your student number there, you've still got that right. And look, the final thing I haven't talked to you about is the number of answer books used. I'm expecting if you use 2 books, to put 2 there. You can use more than 2 books, that's fine, in which case you put 3 there. You know, you don't pay for the paper, somebody else is paying for the paper. So, while we've got this here, we should talk about the rest of it. Put in the details on each answer book. They're talking about this stuff here, and especially the important one is the ID number. This is the only way of tying your script back to you. The question number being answered in the box at the top of each sheet. That's easy, that's this box here. So you put in question A1 or A2 or B3, whatever, there every time you do it. Begin each answer on a fresh page. So no matter if you just got up to there on your last answer, you turn over and start a new page. Even I would do this actually for a section in a question. So if you come to the end of the page there, don't start a new part of a question down there. Turn over the page and off you go. Remember, you're not paying for the paper. Right on both sides of the page, well, both sides is this side and that side. Do not write in the margins. So the margins are there and there. Don't touch those or else you're going to annoy us. Right, rough working. What you're supposed to do is to write the rough working in one of these books and then just put a line through it. Now, this is interesting because I can tell you from experience that very few students actually bother to do any rough working. They'll go straight into the question. And I think these students are missing a point because many questions you have to plan what you're doing and say how you're going to attack it. And maybe you've got a good memory, maybe you can store it all in your head, but why not put it down on a piece of paper? But, you know, it can be at the back of the book, for example. So the back of the second book. But I can just tell you, very few students do that. At the end of the exam, check you filled in all details. Oh, now this is a piece of silliness here, because the university thinks that we can remember the names of all students, and so your name is protected. So you have to sign it and fold that back. This little strip tears off. Try and take the strip away with you, because otherwise it will litter the exam room, and then you can't see the name. It's a piece of stupidity that just causes trouble, because it might matter if you have a small class of 5 or 6 students, but a class this size is just ridiculous. The tag providers I've talked about, and you can't take any of this stuff away. Okay? There's a little. This tells you what you're supposed to do. It says you can't speak to anybody. You can't use any electronic device apart from a calculator. You can't talk to other candidates during the exam. This is all obvious stuff. It doesn't tell you that you have to write it in black or blue, but really you shouldn't use red, you shouldn't use green, and you shouldn't use pencil. Oh, it does say that actually there. Oh, this is an old one. These change slightly. It actually says here you must write in pen. This is slightly more up to date than that one. Don't mess with this box here. Again, that's an old one. This is a more up to date one. Leave that completely blank. That's for us, not for you. So that's what the exam books look like. That's what you have to do. Yeah, in fact you can leave filling in the front of those till the end when you're told to stop writing. They have to allow you to fill in the front, because there's no point in doing that. Okay, so moving on now to more general points. Has anybody in this room ever left an examination early? Put your hand up, please. Nobody in this room has ever left an examination. Oh, why?
And I had read it.
Well, look, my advice is never ever do that. Okay, you can always get extra marks. Okay. If I see anybody else walking out early, I think it's not because they've finished the paper. You can never finish a paper. It's just because they don't care what mark they get. And that's a valid response. If you don't care what mark you get, that's fine. Leave. Now, the rubric from the paper, these rubrics are actually all published on a notice board in the Zephyr building. So if you want to go along to Zephyr building, look opposite the left, you can see the rubrics for all the exams. But you've got the rubric for this particular exam, because it's on the Notes Wiki. You can find it. past exams papers. There you have it.
太好了。
I think this is Gary's section, I think that's Ollie's section, I think that's my section. But it doesn't really matter. 3 questions only. I think that's quite straightforward.
咱也得看一线答应的。
So,
不是。
you need to work out which questions. Once you can get to see the exam paper, and there's again a piece of silliness that the university here does, they don't allow you to look at the paper until the time starts, which I think is crazy, but that's the way they do it. So work out which questions you're going you're going to answer and make a time plan. So each of these questions should be about 40 minutes. Okay, here's another question for you. Has anybody in this room ever answered more questions on the exam paper than they're asked for on the rubric? Could you put your hands up, please? Okay, well that's good. My firm advice is to never answer extra questions. And why students do it, I don't know. Maybe they're advised to do it in a different environment, but here I think it's crazy. You can always get more marks from improving an answer to a question. But if you answer more questions than you're asked for, then you're just wasting your time. You can't get any extra marks for doing that. So don't answer any extra questions. I can't stop you, but that's my advice. When you select a question, you need to be very, very careful about questions that are completely unstructured, that just say, oh, explain the advantages and disadvantages of modern approaches to cybersecurity. These are dangerous questions because they're too vague. And typically what will happen, a weak student will start to answer this question and it will just be hopeless. They won't get anywhere. Now, you can answer them successfully, but what you have to do is to impose your own structure on that question. And I go back to my point about making notes. Make a plan of what you're going to say and stick to that plan. Follow the time plan. It's easy to get diverted, but you need to know that we're supposed to set an easy part to each of these questions. So there should be a part in the question that anybody can pick up something like 25% of the marks. Then typically the parts will get harder and harder, so that you actually do have to demonstrate understanding to get the 100%. You're not prepared if you can't do the past papers. So there's some past papers there. You do need to be aware to take out the stuff that Professor Sassone has done because it is not involved this year. The syllabus is usually going to change by about 20% every year, and new lecturers are going to set different questions. So Ollie is new this year, and again you need to be aware of that. It's also a bad idea to assume that if a question came up last year, it will not come up this year. Quite often I do that myself if a question is particularly badly answered. And there was one year with an undergraduate class, I actually set the same question 3 years running. You know, after the second year they said, oh, there's no way, that's been up for the last 2 years, that will not come the next year, but it did. And it was still badly answered. So you have to check the current syllabus and the topics actually covered. That's so important. The next thing I really am going to write down, because again, this is important. The exam is testing understanding. And again, Ollie made this point, is not memory. Now, there are some cultures where to get high marks in the exam, all you have to do is to memorize stuff and reproduce it. That will never get you high marks in one of our exams. It's the understanding that we're looking for, exactly as Ollie mentioned. Weak students will do this, of course. I can remember when I first became an academic, one of the most depressing things was to see my own lecture notes being reproduced on an exam script. You know, word for word. They'd memorised it perfectly. But it was completely out of context. It had nothing to do with the question that's being asked. So, again, you know, Ollie's made this point. It has to be in context. And this is the only way, really, to get the understanding, to demonstrate the understanding. The next point I wanted to make was something I've noticed again with the undergraduate staff, because they know that something is possible, but they have no idea how it's done. So I call this the Harry Potter School of Computer Science. It just happens as if by magic. So they think of some plausible way that it might have happened, and they put that down as the underlying explanation, and usually it's just rubbish. You do have to understand this stuff. You really do. So, plan every answer, rough work. I've talked about that, and I've told you that actually very few students do this. Now, work out the marking scheme. Okay, I'm going to explain my approach to how I mark questions. It's very, very simple. I will give 1 mark for every valid, relevant point that you make in the script. Now, listen to what I say. It's got to be valid. Stuff that's wrong, you don't get any marks at all. And it's got to be relevant to the question that's asked. But then I start awarding marks. And every separate independent point you make, I will give you a mark. I stop counting when I reach the limit. Typically, if we look at a paper, I don't know, let's look at one of last year's paper. This is actually Vladimiro's, but it will do. Once there are 7 valid points up to this point, then I stop and just put 7 out of 7 in the margin, and then move on to the next bit. So that's all you have to do, is to get that many points. So you can't get more than 100%, but that's the way it works. It's got to be relevant to the question asked and correct to be awarded marks. And you won't get extra marks for duplication, because if there's a similar question elsewhere, if Gary's set a question similar, I'll look back to your answer to Gary's question, and if you made the same point and Gary's giving you credit, I won't give you credit again. Now, this is the way I mark, and again, I repeat my warning, my colleagues are not necessarily going to mark like this. My next piece of advice to you is to assume that the examiner is an idiot. You want to give the examiner no alternative but to give you 100%. So you have to spell everything out so that even an idiot has got no choice. Sometimes we see students that can't remember which way something goes. And I'll give you an example from spelling. We don't actually bother with spelling anymore, but R-E-C, I'm not sure if that's right. So you put a splodge there and expect that it will be assumed to be correct. So that's always wrong, and you always get 0. Now, it's just an analogy because we don't bother with spelling. You're actually much better advised to make a judgment call and go for alternative A or alternative B, because you have a 50% chance of getting the marks rather than 0. 50% is better. Make sure your writing is legible. There's a good example of writing that's just about legible before the mistake came in. So my handwriting is pretty illegible, but believe me, when I was taking exams, I made very, very certain that it could be read. Now, I put in a fair amount of effort when I'm marking exams to try and understand what a student is saying. And there comes a point when, after I've looked at the handwriting, I really can't decipher it. I'm just going to put a line through it and give it a 0. So please make it clear. Now, if you've got a whole paper that really can't be read, the university has now got a new system. What they will do is they will arrange for a transcriber to come in, sit down and transcribe your paper from the illegible scrawl that you produce to something that can be read. Now, what's wrong with that, you say? There are actually two problems. First of all, you have to pay for the cost of the transcriber. Okay, so that's real money that you have to forego. And secondly, there's going to be a time delay. It will take time for this to happen. And so everything gets delayed. Obviously, the transcriber is carefully monitored, so that the answer that you wrote down, or what you thought you wrote down, is exactly the transcribed one. But, guys, it's much easier if you just make your handwriting legible so it can be read. Present the results clearly. And there's actually... Sorry. There's actually 2 points here, because you have to explain everything you're doing. So, you know, let's think of a hypothetical question. Calculate the value of pi. Well, we could never ask that question because that's ridiculous. But if somebody just wrote down 3.14, I forgot what the other digits are. Do they get any marks for that? Good question. Do they get any marks? Yes? No? Maybe?
Maybe.
Should they get 100%? They should not get 100%, that's correct. Should they get some marks? Probably. But you need to explain what you're doing. So you need to set out the working. And each step has got to be defined, so you can see. And, you know, not infrequently it happens that a mistake is made at this point. And if all of this is accurate, then you can get marks up to that point, so you get maybe 90%. If you just go straight to the answer, and the answer happens to be wrong, then you get nothing. So, put down the working, but also, you know, space it out. So you end up with the answer is 3.142, and get your ruler out and underline that. Remember, the examiner is an idiot. You want to give the examiner no alternative but to give you 100%. That's the objective. I told you already that you shouldn't write in the margin. I've told you already you shouldn't start at the very bottom of the page. Now, a typical answer, I find, is going to take about 1 page of these booklets for 10 minutes. So typically, one question is going to come out at 4 pages. Now, please, this is an average number. It doesn't have to be 4. I have seen students with very tiny handwriting that were able to put all the relevant points down on 2 pages, and I was delighted to give them 100%. I've seen other students have got very big handwriting that go on for 7 pages, 8 pages even, just on one question, and it's all rubbish, so it ends up with 0. But if you've got normal handwriting, and if you're following the sort of rules I'm talking about, you should expect to have about 4 pages for your answer to one question. Now, sometimes I get a weak student that really doesn't know what they're doing, and their answer is all on 1 page, or actually it's something like this. There's a page and there's a little bit of stuff up there. How many marks should I give that? What do you reckon? I'm going to look at the points they make, of course, but with the criteria I talked about, what sort of mark would you expect to see that a question like that achieve? Do you want to guess? Hazard a guess?
Low marks.
Hmm?
Low marks.
Low marks.
Yeah.
Low marks, yes, but give me a figure. You're the examiner now.
I have to see what the...
just assume that there's about a quarter of a page and it's right and it's relevant. Okay, so what are we talking about?
The mathematics based on the issue in 4 pages is a percentage of that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's do the arithmetic.
必须写的是那个是吧？
Is that right?
哦。
No, don't read too much in there because there might have been it might be tiny writing and there might be 5 valid points there. So actually, we could double that and give it 5. But it's not going to be a high mark, and that was the point you were making.
必须写的特别，这写少了。
Oh yeah. Sometimes students ask, can I make an answer in the form of notes? And the answer is yes, but all the information has got to be there. So you can have bullet points and say. But where this starts to go wrong is when the student thinks that the answer to a question is going to be essay SQL injection, and there's no indication there of any understanding of SQL injection. I think some people with rob the bank went wrong here because they didn't explain the context in which they were finding a vulnerability. They didn't explain exactly what they did, and they didn't. This is the point. They didn't demonstrate understanding. So there has to be enough understanding demonstrated in this note form for me to award the marks, and that's the point. The next observation is that you quite often see a question say, with the aid of a diagram, do such and such, but you can put a figure in anyway. A picture is worth 1,000 words. So you can have a sort of graph that shows something or other. As long as it's accurate, as long as it's relevant to the question asked, it's a very, very good way of demonstrating to the examiner that you understand what you're talking about. And exactly the same way, exactly the same thing applies to examples. Frequently a question will say, with the aid of an example, show. But it's the same thing. An example, again, it's got to be relevant, it's got to be accurate, but it's an excellent way to demonstrate to the examiner you understand what you're talking about. So that's it really. So straightforward. You want to give the examiner no alternative but to award you 100%. When you walk out of the exam, you should know in advance what your mark's going to be. So I do apologise if anybody has found this boring, and you knew it all already, but I can assure you from looking at the scripts, every year there are a lot of students that don't understand their stuff, obvious and straightforward as it might appear. So let me pause for questions.
When you said about spelling, there's a lot of technical terms like pseudonymization. So if you get those spellings wrong, you're saying that you've been marked down.
You have to forgive me, I'm going slightly deaf. But I think you're saying for a technical word, if the spelling is wrong,
yeah.
Were you going to lose a mark? It depends how wrong it is. If it's completely clear, and if you know that you're not sure about the spelling, you can put a IE and then explain it. That's another example. That's an example of an example. Okay.
Yeah.
And then it's clear. And no, we're not going to take on lots of spelling. We've given up on that. We've given up. Sorry, there was a question there.
You said we can do diagrams and stuff like that and graphs. Is it okay to draw those in pencil, or can we only use
The reason why the exam office don't like pencil is that somebody can come along with an eraser. So you're better off doing it in pen. I mean, my advice would be, if you're not sure about your drawing skills, why don't you just sketch it out lightly in pencil and then go over it with a biro. That'll work. Yeah?
Do we need a calculator?
Can you use a calculator?
Do we need a calculator?
Do you? Yes. This is an interesting question. I used to have a great deal of fun in setting exams and telling the students they couldn't use calculators, and then I'd put in something like long division. Okay? You don't need a calculator for long division, but believe me, no student today, I'm talking about undergraduate students obviously, can do long division in their head. They've got to have a calculator. So I've given up on calculators. So you can have a calculator. Do you need it? That's a very good question. I'm just trying to remember what's in the paper, and I've forgotten what's in the paper. I think my advice is to have it, because that's one less thing to worry about. Well, you could worry about them leaving it behind, and that happens. But I don't think there's many things to calculate. I really don't. So, any more questions?
You mentioned that we don't need to memorize stuff.
专业的词儿上面都没有，小字典上面没有。
The question is, do you need to memorize formulas? I think if you understand it well enough, the answer is no. But you might find as a means to achieving the understanding, it makes sense to try and memorize it. It's a judgment call, because when I say we're not interested in memory, we don't want to say, not only talk about it. We don't want to say written out. It's got to be related to the context in which the question is asked. Now, do you need to memorize? Everybody's different. Everybody works and revises in a different way. You have to ask that question. Any other questions? Dictionary. Yes. What sort of dictionary?
Electronic dictionary.
Is it covered by this?
It's English, foreign language, so it has to be an English dictionary.
So it's got to be a paper version of a word-to-word translation dictionary. So you're talking about Chinese, are you? English to Chinese?
Yeah.
It's covered. It's there. What you can't do is to put extra stuff in. That's not allowed. Okay. Question answered. Any other questions? What happened to those strips in the book?
查账啊！你拿，你说不是有用？你真的是，你万一有个词儿卡在那儿，完了理解错了，我操，本来不难。不是你理解，对你理解题目不是，你理解不对。 可以去整一本词典，或者记一本。
We have one more slot at 12 o'clock. I see if Gary wants to come along to that slot. I asked Ollie and Ollie says, well, I've told them everything I know. But if anybody wants to come along at 12 tomorrow with some questions, we can try and answer them. Okay? See you tomorrow at 12.
回头咱们。